The quantum wave expanded outward from Project Silverlight at the speed of light. It was invisible to the eye, but its effects were immediate and absolute. Every Zelthari ship within 10,000 kilometers simply ceased to exist. The massive warships didn't explode or burn. They just came apart at the molecular level, dissolving into clouds of atoms that scattered into space. 197 Zelthari vessels vanished in less than 3 seconds. Overlord Venrak's flagship was at the center of the blast. The mighty Overlord had just enough time to realize what was happening before he and his entire command staff dissolved into nothing. The 3 Zelthari ships that had been outside the blast radius stopped moving. Their crews stared in horror at the empty space where their fleet had been. 200 ships had just been erased from existence by a single human weapon. The 3 surviving captains didn't need to discuss their options. They jumped to faster than light speed and fled the solar system. On Earth, billions of people watched in stunned silence as the Zelthari fleet disappeared from their screens. For a moment, no one could believe it. Then the realization hit. They had won. Against impossible odds, humanity had defeated the Zelthari Empire. Cities around the world erupted in celebration. People poured into the streets crying and laughing and hugging strangers. Church bells rang. Fireworks lit up the sky. It was the greatest moment of joy in human history. But in the command center, President Linda Hayes didn't celebrate. She stared at the screen where Captain Derek Morgan's life signs had finally flatlined. 19 brave people had died on the horizon's edge. Dozens of other ships had been destroyed. Thousands of crew members were dead. Titan's Edge was gone. The victory had come at a terrible price, ma'am. Admiral Jack Peterson said quietly. The surviving human ships are reporting in. We lost 27 vessels in total. Over 4,000 crew members killed in action. Linda nodded slowly. Make sure every family is notified personally. I want full military honors for everyone who died today, and I want Captain Morgan and his crew to receive the highest honors Earth can give. Already being arranged, Madam President, Jack said. But there's something else. We're receiving transmissions from multiple alien species. Word of what happened here is spreading fast. Linda straightened up. What are they saying? They want to know who we are, Jack replied. The species in this region have been under Zelthari control for centuries. They can't believe anyone actually defeated a Zelthari fleet. We're getting requests for diplomatic contact, offers of alliance, questions about our weapons technology. And the Zelthari Empire? Linda asked. Have we heard from their main government? Yes, ma'am. About an hour ago. They're requesting peace negotiations. Linda almost laughed. Peace after what they did to Titan's Edge? They're scared, Jack said. We destroyed an entire battle fleet with a weapon they'd never seen before. They don't know if we have more weapons like that. They don't know how powerful we really are. Right now, they're more afraid of us than we are of them. Linda considered this. Earth didn't have more quantum weapons. Dr. Claire Bennett had been clear that Project Silverlight was a one-time device, and building another would take years. But the Zelthari didn't know that. As long as they feared Earth's capabilities, they would think twice about attacking again. Set up the negotiations, Linda said, but make it clear that we're not the ones asking for peace. They are. We'll negotiate from a position of strength. 3 weeks later, President Linda Hayes stood on a neutral space station in the Proxima system. The station had been built by a coalition of smaller alien species as a place for diplomacy. Now it would host the most important negotiation in human history. The Zelthari delegation arrived with much less arrogance than before. Their new overlord, a younger Zelthari named Tekvar, approached with forearms spread in a gesture that the translator said meant respect. He had replaced Venrak, who had died in the battle. President Hayes, Tekvar said. His voice was cautious, measured. The Zelthari Empire wishes to express regret for the misunderstanding between our peoples. Misunderstanding? Linda said coldly. You murdered 15,000 civilians and attacked our homeworld. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was an act of war. Tekvar's yellow eyes flickered. Overlord Venrak exceeded his authority. His actions were not approved by the Imperial Council. We have investigated the incident and determined that his approach was too aggressive. Linda knew this was political language. The Zelthari were trying to save face by blaming everything on the dead overlord, but she also knew that results mattered more than apologies. What are you proposing? Linda asked. A treaty, Tekvar said. We will recognize human territory in this sector. We will pay compensation for the colony we destroyed. We will establish diplomatic relations and trade agreements, and we will guarantee that no Zelthari forces will enter human space without permission. In exchange for what? Linda knew there had to be something they wanted. Non-aggression assurances from humanity, Tekvar said carefully, and information sharing about potential threats to both our peoples. Linda smiled slightly. You're afraid we'll come after you next. Tekvar didn't deny it. Your species defeated our fleet in a single battle. You possess weapons we don't understand. Yes, we would prefer to have humans as allies rather than enemies. Linda took her time considering the offer. She consulted with her advisors through a secure channel. Admiral Peterson thought it was a good deal. They needed time to build up Earth's defenses properly. Dr. Bennett warned that they couldn't afford a prolonged war with the Zelthari, not without more advanced weapons. Secretary Walsh argued for taking the diplomatic victory while they could. We accept your terms, Linda finally said, but with additional conditions. First, the Zelthari Empire will share all information about other hostile species in this region. Second, you will provide detailed maps of this sector of the galaxy. Third, any species that wishes to break free from Zelthari control will be allowed to do so without interference. And fourth, you will help establish a neutral council where all species can meet as equals. Tekvar looked uncomfortable with some of these conditions, especially the third one, but he knew he had no choice. The Zelthari military was terrified of humanity's weapons. The Imperial Council had made it clear that peace with Earth was the top priority. We agree to your terms, Tekvar said. The Treaty of Proxima was signed 3 hours later. It established humanity as a recognized interstellar power, with protected territory spanning 12 systems. The Zelthari agreed to pay massive compensation for Titan's Edge and to assist with rebuilding efforts. Most importantly, the treaty established Earth as an equal to the Zelthari Empire, something no other species had achieved in 3,000 years. News of the treaty spread across the galaxy. Within months, other species began reaching out to Earth. Some wanted trade agreements. Others wanted military alliances against the Zelthari. A few wanted to learn how humanity had developed such powerful weapons. President Hayes carefully managed these new relationships, knowing that Earth was still vulnerable despite its victory. She authorized massive increases in military spending. New shipyards were built around Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Earth's fleet grew from 43 ships to over 200 in just 2 years. Dr. Claire Bennett led efforts to develop new weapons and defenses. She never managed to recreate Project Silverlight, but she developed other technologies that kept potential enemies guessing about Earth's capabilities. 5 years after the battle, Linda stood at the memorial that had been built for the Horizon's Edge crew. It was a beautiful structure made of black stone, with the names of all 19 crew members carved in gold letters. Captain Derek Morgan's name was at the top, along with his final words, "For Earth." Thousands of people visited the memorial every day. It had become a symbol of human courage and sacrifice. Schools taught about Captain Morgan and his crew. Their story inspired millions to join the space fleet or work in defense industries. Linda placed flowers at the base of the memorial, as she did every year on the anniversary of the battle. She thought about Derek and Katie and all the others who had died that day. They had been so young, with so much life ahead of them, but they had given everything to save humanity. "Thank you," Linda whispered to the stone. "You saved us all." Later that day, she attended a ceremony at the new Space Command headquarters. Admiral Peterson was there, along with representatives from a dozen allied species. They were forming the Galactic Free Council, an organization dedicated to mutual defense and peaceful cooperation among species who rejected Zelthari domination. Humans had gone from being unknown newcomers to respected leaders in just 5 years. Other species looked to Earth for guidance and protection. The species that had been oppressed by the Zelthari for centuries finally had hope for freedom. But Linda knew that humanity's challenges weren't over. The galaxy was vast and filled with dangers they hadn't encountered yet. The Zelthari might someday want revenge. New threats could emerge at any time. That's why Earth continued building its defenses. That's why the fleet kept growing. That's why scientists worked around the clock on new technologies. Humanity had learned an important lesson. Strength was necessary for survival in a dangerous galaxy. The Zelthari fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, near Neptune's orbit. 200 warships, each one massive and bristling with weapons. Overlord Venerak stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the distant speck of light that was the human sun. Soon, he thought, these annoying creatures would learn their place. At Neptune's orbit, Admiral Jack Peterson waited with Earth's entire fleet, 43 ships against 200. The odds were terrible, but Jack had fought against bad odds before. The key was to make every shot count and buy as much time as possible. "All ships, this is Admiral Peterson," Jack said over the fleet-wide channel. "Remember your training. Stay in formation, watch each other's backs, and make them pay for every ship they destroy. Earth is counting on us." The Zelthari fleet began its advance. They moved in perfect formation, confident and unstoppable. Jack watched them come and felt no fear, only determination. Win or lose, the galaxy would remember this day. "All ships fire at will," Jack commanded. The battle began with a massive exchange of weapons fire. Earth ships used railguns, missiles, and energy beams. The Zelthari responded with plasma cannons and some kind of blue energy weapon that seemed to burn through shields like they weren't there. The space between the two fleets lit up with explosions and streaking projectiles. The first human ship to die was the destroyer Seattle. It took 3 direct hits and broke apart in a flash of fire. Then the Vancouver fell, then the Toronto. Within the first 10 minutes, Earth had lost 8 ships, but they had destroyed 4 Zelthari vessels and damaged a dozen more. On the horizon's edge, Captain Derek Morgan maneuvered his damaged ship through the chaos. He had volunteered to return to the battle even though his vessel was still being repaired from the earlier encounter with the Zelthari. His crew had volunteered to join him. They all knew what they were fighting for. "Target their engines," Derek told Katie at the weapons station. "If we can't destroy them, we can slow them down." Katie lined up the shot and fired. The railgun rounds tore into a Zelthari cruiser's engine section. The ship didn't explode, but it began drifting off course, unable to maneuver. "Good shot," Derek said. "Target the next one." Across the battlefield, human ships fought with desperate courage. They dove between larger Zelthari vessels, using their smaller size to avoid the worst of the enemy fire. They concentrated their attacks on single targets, overwhelming shields through focused firepower. And slowly, painfully, they began to learn the enemy's patterns. It was Lieutenant Katie Sullivan who made the discovery that would save many lives. She noticed that when a Zelthari ship's shields recharged, there was a brief moment where they flickered. Just 0.3 seconds, but it was enough. "Captain, I've found a weakness in their shields," Katie said excitedly. She explained what she had seen. Derek immediately broadcast the information to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Horizon's Edge. Target enemy shields during their recharge cycle. You'll have a 0.3-second window. Make it count." The tide of the battle didn't turn, but it shifted. Human losses slowed. Zelthari losses increased. Instead of losing 3 ships for every enemy destroyed, Earth was now losing 2 to 1. Still terrible odds, but better. On Earth, billions of people watched the battle on their screens. They saw their defenders dying in the black of space. They saw ships explode in brilliant flashes of light. And instead of panic, something remarkable happened. People flooded recruitment centers. Factories began working around the clock to build more weapons and ships. Even children donated their savings to help fund the war effort. President Hayes watched the battle from the command center, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Every ship that died took a piece of her heart with it. These were her people dying for their freedom. "How much longer can they hold?" she asked Jack, who was coordinating the defense from Earth. "They're doing better than expected," Jack said. "But they can't win. Eventually, the Zelthari numbers will overwhelm them." "Project Silverlight?" Linda asked. "Dr. Bennett says it's ready. We just need a volunteer." "I'll do it," said a voice from the doorway. Captain Derek Morgan's face appeared on the communication screen. He was transmitting from the Horizon's Edge. "My ship is already damaged. We won't survive much longer anyway. Let us make our deaths count." "Derek, no," Linda said. "We need you. We need experienced commanders." "You need the Zelthari fleet destroyed more," Derek replied. His face was calm, accepting. "It's the logical choice, Madam President. Let me do this." Linda looked at the young captain's face. He was so young with so much potential. But he was right. Someone had to do this, and he had already volunteered. She couldn't ask him to step aside when he was willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. "God be with you, Captain," Linda said quietly. "All of humanity thanks you." The connection ended. On Earth, Dr. Claire Bennett remotely transferred Project Silverlight's control codes to the Horizon's Edge. The weapon was physically installed on a cargo ship that had been retrofitted for military use, but Derek's ship would guide it into position. Derek addressed his crew. Many of them were injured from the battle. Several stations on the bridge had been destroyed. But they were still fighting. "You all know what we're about to do," Derek said. "Anyone who wants to evacuate to another ship can do so now. No shame in it. You've all fought bravely, no one moved." Katie spoke up. "We're with you, Captain." "All the way." Paul Martinez nodded from his damaged console. "Someone's got to make sure you don't mess up the technical stuff, sir." Even Henry Carter, the scientist who had never wanted to be in a battle, smiled grimly. "I didn't come this far just to miss the ending." Derek felt pride swell in his chest. These were his people, the best crew anyone could ask for. "All right then. Let's show these aliens what humans can do." The Horizon's Edge, battered and barely functional, began moving toward the center of the Zelthari fleet. The cargo ship with Project Silverlight followed close behind. At first, the Zelthari didn't pay attention to the damaged vessel. They were focused on the larger human warships that were still putting up fierce resistance. But Overlord Venerak noticed. He saw the human ship's trajectory and realized it was heading straight for his flagship. "Destroy that vessel," Venerak commanded. "All nearby ships concentrate fire on that damaged cruiser." Suddenly, the Horizon's Edge became the focus of dozens of Zelthari warships. Energy beams and plasma bolts converged on the small ship. The shields collapsed immediately. The hull began to rupture. "Activate Silverlight," Derek ordered, holding onto his chair as the ship shook violently. "Start the charging sequence." Deep in the cargo ship's hold, Project Silverlight came to life. Massive capacitors began drawing power from the ship's reactor. Quantum generators spun up to incredible speeds. The 30-minute countdown began. The Horizon's Edge took hit after hit. The engine room exploded, killing everyone there instantly. Life support failed on several decks. Paul Martinez died at his station when a plasma bolt punched through the hull. But the ship kept moving forward, pushed by momentum and emergency thrusters. Katie worked frantically at her console, firing back at the Zelthari ships even as her station sparked and smoked around her. 25 minutes to go, Captain." More hits. The viewing screen shattered. The artificial gravity failed, leaving the crew floating in 0G. Henry Carter was killed when a bulkhead collapsed. Derek felt something warm running down his face and realized he was bleeding from a head wound. "Divert life support to Project Silverlight," Derek ordered. "We need it to keep charging." "But Captain, that will," Katie started. "Do it," Derek said firmly. "That's an order." Katie's hands trembled as she rerouted the power. Immediately, the air on the bridge began to thin. Alarms sounded, warning about oxygen depletion. The crew members who were still alive sealed their emergency suits. 15 minutes, Katie said, her voice coming through Derek's helmet communicator. The Zelthari were now throwing everything at the Horizon's Edge. Overlord Venerak had realized this wasn't just a suicide run. The humans were doing something that worried him. He ordered his flagship to pull back, but it was too late. They were too deep in their own formation to escape quickly. 10 minutes, Katie said. Only she and Derek remained alive on the bridge now. The ship was barely more than a drifting wreck, held together by hope and determination. Admiral Peterson's fleet fought harder than ever, trying to keep the Zelthari distracted. Human ships threw themselves at the enemy, dying to give Derek a few more seconds. 5 minutes, Katie whispered. The Horizon's Edge was breaking apart. Sections of the hull were simply floating away. Both Derek and Katie were injured badly, but they stayed at their posts. "Katie," Derek said, "it's been an honor serving with you." "The honor was mine, Captain," Katie replied. She was crying inside her helmet, but her voice was steady. A massive explosion tore through the ship. Katie's station was destroyed and she was thrown against the wall. Derek saw her suit was breached. She had seconds left. "Captain," she gasped. "The firing controls. I transferred them to your station. You have to finish it." "Katie, no," Derek said, but she was already gone. Derek was alone on the bridge of a dying ship, surrounded by the bodies of his crew, his friends, his family. Blood filled his helmet, making it hard to see. President Linda Hayes stood in the emergency meeting room deep beneath the White House. Around the large table sat the most powerful people on Earth, military leaders, scientists, diplomats, and representatives from every major nation. The mood was grim. Everyone had seen Captain Morgan's transmission. Everyone knew what the Zelthari had done to Titan's Edge. Linda was 58 years old, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had been president for 4 years and had guided humanity through economic crises and environmental challenges. But nothing had prepared her for this. An alien empire demanding Earth's surrender or threatening extinction. "Let's be clear about our situation," said Admiral Jack Peterson, commander of Earth's United Fleet. Jack was 60 years old, a career military officer with a strong jaw and graying temples. "The Zelthari have thousands of ships. We have 43 warships. In a straight fight, we lose. Badly." "What about our defense platforms?" asked General Lisa Grant, head of planetary defense. Lisa was in her early 50s, known for her strategic mind and no-nonsense attitude. "We have 63 orbital defense platforms around Earth and our colonies." Lisa answered her own question. "They're powerful, but they're stationary. The Zelthari can just avoid them or overwhelm them with numbers, so we can't win militarily," said Secretary of State Peter Walsh. Peter was a thin man in his 60s who had spent his career trying to prevent wars, not prepare for them. "Then we should negotiate. Find some middle ground." "There is no middle ground," Linda said firmly. "The Zelthari want complete submission. They destroyed Titan's Edge without warning, without mercy. 15,000 people, Peter. They didn't negotiate. They murdered." The room fell silent. Everyone knew she was right. "What about Project Silverlight?" asked a voice from the end of the table. Dr. Claire Bennett, head of Advanced Weapons Research, stood up. Claire was 45 years old with dark hair and intense eyes. She had been working on classified projects in Antarctica for the past decade. "If there was ever a time to use it, this is it." "What's Project Silverlight?" asked General Grant. "I've never heard of it." Linda nodded to Claire. "Doctor, please explain." Claire pressed a button and a holographic display appeared above the table. It showed complex mathematical formulas and energy patterns. "For the past 20 years, we've been developing quantum weapons. Project Silverlight is the result. It uses quantum entanglement to disrupt molecular bonds on a massive scale. Essentially, it can make objects fall apart at the atomic level." "Why don't we have these weapons deployed already?" Jack asked. "Because they're extremely difficult to build and even harder to use," Claire explained. "We've only successfully created one functional device. It requires massive amounts of energy, takes 30 minutes to charge, and must be fired from within 10,000 kilometers of the target. And once it fires, the device burns out. It's a one-shot weapon." "But will it work against the Zelthari ships?" Linda asked. "In theory, yes," Claire said. "The quantum wave should affect their ships the same way it affects anything else. Everything within the blast radius would simply disintegrate." "How large is the blast radius?" General Grant asked. 10,000 kilometers in all directions. Any ship in that sphere would be destroyed instantly." Jack leaned forward. "So if we could get close enough to their fleet and fire this weapon, we could wipe out hundreds of their ships at once." "Yes," Claire said. "But the ship carrying Silverlight would need to survive for 30 minutes under heavy fire while the weapon charges." "That's the problem." The room buzzed with conversation as everyone considered this information. Linda held up her hand for silence. "We have 72 hours before the Zelthari said they would come to Earth. That's not much time." "Actually, we probably have less than that," Jack said. "I've been studying the sensor data from Captain Morgan's ship. The Zelthari fleet that destroyed Titan's Edge is already moving toward the Sol system. At their current speed, they'll be here in about 60 hours. "Can we evacuate Earth?" someone asked. "Evacuate 8 billion people in 60 hours? Linda said. "Impossible. Even if we had enough ships, which we don't, there's nowhere to send them. The Zelthari control all nearby systems." "Then we fight," Jack said simply. "We use every ship, every platform, every weapon we have. We make them pay for every meter of space." "And Project Silverlight?" Linda asked. Claire spoke carefully. "I can have the device ready in 48 hours, but someone will have to volunteer for what is essentially a suicide mission. The chances of surviving long enough to fire the weapon are extremely low." Linda looked around the table at the faces of Earth's leaders. She saw fear there, but also determination. These were people who understood that sometimes survival required sacrifice. "I'll address the United Nations in 2 hours," Linda said. "The world needs to know what's coming. Then I'll send a message to the Zelthari. It's time to draw a line in the sand." 2 hours later, Linda stood before the assembled representatives of every nation on Earth. The speech was also broadcast to every screen on the planet, every colony in the solar system. Billions of people watched as their president prepared to speak. "Citizens of Earth," Linda began, Today, humanity faces its greatest challenge. An alien empire called the Zelthari has demanded our complete surrender. They want us to dismantle our defenses, abandon our colonies, and become slaves to their rule. They murdered 15,000 of our people to demonstrate their power. They believe fear will make us submit. She paused and looked directly into the camera. They are wrong. Throughout our history, humanity has faced empires that demanded our submission. We have faced tyrants who tried to enslave us. And every single time we have fought back. We have bled, we have suffered, we have lost battles, but we have never surrendered our freedom. Linda's voice grew stronger. The Zelthari Empire thinks we are weak because we are new to space. They think our small fleet means we will be easy to conquer, but they don't understand what makes humanity strong. We are strong because we stand together. We are strong because we refuse to give up. We are strong because we would rather die free than live as slaves. She held up a document. I am sending this message to Overlord Venrak of the Zelthari Empire. It is humanity's answer to his demands. It says, Earth does not surrender. Earth does not kneel. Cease your aggression against humanity or face the consequences. This is our final ultimatum. The chamber erupted in applause. Linda let it continue for a moment, then raised her hand for silence. I won't lie to you. The battle ahead will be hard. Many of us may not survive. But I believe in humanity. I believe in our courage, our ingenuity, our determination. The Zelthari wanted to demonstrate their power. Now we will demonstrate ours. After the speech, Linda returned to the Situation Room. Jack was already there, coordinating with fleet commanders across the solar system. Every available ship was being armed and prepared. Crews were volunteering faster than ships could be crewed. The message to the Zelthari has been sent, Jack said. No response yet. They'll respond, Linda said. They can't allow a challenge like that to go unanswered. She was right. An hour later, Overlord Venrak's face appeared on the main screen. He looked amused. Your speech was very inspiring, President Hayes, the Overlord said mockingly. Very emotional. But emotion does not defeat warships. Pride does not stop energy weapons. You are prolonging the inevitable and ensuring more of your people will die. We've made our decision, Linda replied calmly. The question is whether you've made yours. You can leave our space peacefully or you can fight us. But understand this. If you choose to fight, we will make you pay. We may lose, but we will hurt you badly enough that every other species in the galaxy will know the Zelthari Empire can bleed. Venrak's amusement faded. You dare threaten us? Insects do not threaten predators. We're not insects, Linda said. We're humans. And humans are the most dangerous species we know. We fought our way to the top of our world against creatures stronger, faster, and more deadly than us. We survived ice ages, plagues, and our own wars. We split the atom and reached the stars. What have the Zelthari done except bully weaker species? For a moment, Venrak said nothing. Then he leaned forward, his yellow eyes burning with anger. Very well, human. You want war? You shall have it. My fleet will arrive at your Earth in 60 hours. I will personally oversee the destruction of your planet, and when it is over, I will make sure the galaxy remembers what happens to species who defy the Zelthari Empire. The screen went dark. Linda took a deep breath. There was no turning back now. Earth had chosen its path. Jack looked at her with respect. That was quite a performance, Madam President. It wasn't a performance, Linda said quietly. I meant every word. Now let's make sure we're ready to back them up. The Zelthari ships led the horizon's edge to a massive station orbiting a gas giant. The station was enormous, easily the size of a small moon. Hundreds of ships moved around it like insects around a hive. Derek had never seen anything like it. Earth's largest space station could fit inside this structure 100 times over. Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from that station, Katie said. Whatever weapons they have, they could vaporize us in seconds. Derek nodded but kept his eyes on the screen. Maintain position and keep our shields up. Stay ready for anything. A new face appeared on the communication screen. This Zelthari was larger than Commander Zektar, with darker scales and more elaborate armor. His forearms were crossed over his chest and his yellow eyes burned with intensity. I am Overlord Venrak, Supreme Commander of this sector, the alien said. His voice was even deeper than Zektar's, filled with authority and menace. You are the leader of these humans? I'm Captain Derek Morgan of Earth, Derek replied, standing straight and meeting the Overlord's gaze. We came here peacefully to explore. Explore? Venrak's mouth curled into what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. You invaded Imperial territory. You established a colony on one of our worlds without permission. These are acts of war. Derek's stomach dropped. Titan's Edge was established in unclaimed space 5 years ago. We had no knowledge of your empire. Ignorance is not an excuse, Venrak said coldly. This entire sector belongs to the Zelthari Empire. It has belonged to us for 3,000 years. Every species in this region knows this. Every species pays tribute and follows our laws. We're not from this region, Derek said. Earth is far from here. We just developed faster-than-light travel a few years ago. This is our first deep space exploration. Venrak leaned forward. Then let this be your first lesson about the galaxy, human. The strong rule and the weak submit. Your species will do the same. What exactly are you demanding? Derek asked, though he already feared the answer. Full surrender, Venrak stated. Your Earth will dismantle all military vessels. You will abandon all colonies outside your home system. You will provide us with all your technology and resources, and you will pay tribute to the Empire every year. If you refuse, we will destroy your colony on Titan's Edge as a demonstration. Then we will come to your Earth and take what we want by force. Derek felt rage building inside him, but he forced himself to stay calm. Those are terms of slavery, not diplomacy. Call it what you wish, Venrak said. You have 24 hours to contact your leaders and deliver our demands. If they refuse, the colony dies. You are dismissed. The screen went dark. Derek stood in silence for a moment, his hands clenched into fists. His crew watched him, waiting. Paul, can you break through their jamming and contact Earth? Derek asked. I think so, sir, Paul said. If I route through the relay satellites we passed on the way here, I can create a tight beam transmission. It'll take about 4 hours to reach Earth, though. Do it. Send everything we've recorded to Earth Defense Command and the President. Mark it as highest priority. While Paul worked on the transmission, Derek called Katie and Henry to his ready room. The small office felt cramped with 3 people inside, but Derek needed to talk without the entire bridge crew listening. What do you think? Derek asked them. Katie spoke first. They're serious about destroying Titan's Edge. I've been analyzing their weapons. Those ships could wipe out the colony in minutes. We can't let that happen, Derek said, but what can we do? Henry asked. They have thousands of ships. We have one. Derek sat down heavily in his chair. I know, but we can't just accept their demands either. If Earth surrenders now, humanity will be slaves forever. There's something else you should know, Henry said quietly. I've been studying the Zelthari. They're apex predators, evolved from pack hunters. Their entire culture is based on dominance and submission. If we show weakness, they'll never respect us. But if we show strength, even if we lose, they might think twice about pushing us too hard. You're suggesting we fight? Katie asked. I'm suggesting we don't make it easy for them, Henry replied. Bullies respect strength. The Zelthari are bullies. Derek thought about this. Earth's fleet was small compared to the Zelthari Empire. But humanity wasn't defenseless. They had been building ships and weapons for decades, preparing for the possibility of hostile aliens. The question was whether they could build enough fast enough. We need to buy time, Derek said finally. Time for Earth to prepare. Time to evacuate Titan's Edge if possible. Time to figure out a strategy. How do we buy time? Katie asked. Before Derek could answer, Paul's voice came through the intercom. Captain, you need to see this, now. Derek rushed back to the bridge. On the viewing screen, a horrifying scene played out. 3 Zelthari warships had moved into orbit around Titan's Edge. Beams of bright blue energy lanced down from the ships, striking the colony's domes and installations. The structures exploded in brilliant flashes of light. No, Derek whispered. They said we had 24 hours. They lied, Katie said, her voice shaking with anger. The bombardment lasted only 5 minutes. When it ended, Titan's Edge was gone. 15,000 people dead. The colony Derek's sensors had detected just hours ago was now nothing but burning ruins and scattered debris. Overlord Venrak's face appeared on the screen again. That was your demonstration, human. Now you understand what happens to those who defy the Zelthari Empire. Return to your Earth and deliver our demands. You have 72 hours. The communication ended. The bridge was silent except for the quiet beeping of consoles. Derek saw tears on some of his crew's faces. He felt tears in his own eyes but forced them back. He couldn't break down now. His crew needed him to be strong. Did the transmission get through to Earth? Derek asked Paul. Yes, sir. Sent 10 minutes ago. They should receive it in about 3.5 hours. Good. Derek stood and addressed his entire bridge crew. What just happened was murder. 15,000 innocent people died because the Zelthari wanted to make a point. They think this will scare us into surrendering. They think we'll see their power and give up. He paused and looked at each crew member. But they don't understand humans. They don't know our history. They don't know that every time someone has tried to enslave us or destroy us, we've fought back. Sometimes we've lost battles, but we've never given up. We've never stopped fighting for our freedom. Katie stood up from her station. "What are your orders, Captain?" "We're going home," Derek said. "We're going to warn Earth about what's coming. And then we're going to help prepare for war. Because I promise you this, humanity will not kneel to the Zelthari Empire. Not now, not ever." The crew responded with determination in their eyes. They began preparing the ship for the long journey home. Derek returned to his ready room and sat alone in the darkness. He thought about the people of Titan's Edge, about their families on Earth who would soon learn they were dead, about the war that was now inevitable. The Zelthari had made a terrible mistake today. They had shown humanity their true nature. They had demonstrated their cruelty and their arrogance. And in doing so, they had united humanity against them. Derek pulled up a communication form on his terminal and began writing his official report. He chose his words carefully, knowing that what he wrote would be read by President Linda Hayes and the entire Global Defense Council. He described everything that had happened, every detail of the Zelthari's demands and their destruction of Titan's Edge. At the end of his report, Derek added a personal recommendation. "The Zelthari Empire believes we will submit through fear. I recommend we show them what humans do when threatened. I recommend we fight." He sent the report through the same channel Paul had used earlier. Then he sat back and closed his eyes. The journey home would take 3 weeks. 3 weeks to prepare his crew for what was coming. 3 weeks before humanity would face its greatest challenge. Somewhere in the darkness of space, the Zelthari overlord probably thought he had won. He thought one destroyed colony would be enough to break humanity's spirit. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The stars looked different from this far away from home. Captain Derek Morgan stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge and watched the vast darkness of space through the viewing screen. He had been in command of this ship for 3 years, but this mission was special. This was humanity's first journey beyond the known systems. The first time humans would travel this far into the galaxy. Derek was 42 years old, with short brown hair that was starting to show gray at the temples. He had spent 20 years in Earth's space fleet, working his way up from a young pilot to the captain of humanity's most advanced exploration vessel. Today he felt the weight of that responsibility more than ever. "Captain, we're approaching the Kepler 442 system," said Lieutenant Katie Sullivan from her station. Katie was the ship's tactical officer, a sharp woman in her early 30s with blonde hair tied back in a tight bun. She had excellent instincts, and Derek trusted her completely. "Good work, Katie. Begin the scanning sequence," Derek replied. He turned to the science station where Dr. Henry Carter was already working. Henry was 50 years old, a brilliant scientist who had devoted his life to studying alien life. He wore thick glasses and had a habit of muttering to himself when he was concentrating. "I'm picking up some interesting readings, Captain," Henry said without looking up from his screen. "There are artificial structures in this system." "Lots of them." Derek felt his heart beat faster. Artificial structures meant someone had built them. Someone intelligent, someone not human. Humanity had been searching for alien life for centuries, and now they might have finally found it. "Can you identify the structures?" Derek asked. "They look like space stations, mining facilities, and some kind of large vessels. Very advanced technology, far beyond what we have," Henry answered. Before Derek could respond, the ship's alarm system activated. A bright red light flashed across the bridge and a warning tone filled the air. "Captain, we have incoming ships," Katie said quickly. Her fingers moved rapidly across her console. 5 vessels, large ones. "They're moving fast toward our position. Battle stations. Raise shields," Derek ordered. The crew moved quickly, each person knowing exactly what to do. They had trained for this possibility, but training was different from the real thing. The alien ships appeared on the viewing screen. They were massive, at least 3 times the size of the horizon's edge. Their hulls were dark gray with glowing blue lines running across the surface. They looked powerful and dangerous. "They're hailing us, Captain," said the communications officer, a young man named Paul Martinez. "Put it through," Derek said. He straightened his uniform and prepared himself to meet humanity's first alien contact. The viewing screen changed to show the interior of one of the alien ships. A creature appeared that made Derek's breath catch in his throat. It stood over 7 feet tall with 4 arms and skin that looked like dark purple scales. Its eyes were bright yellow and its mouth was filled with sharp teeth. When it spoke, the words came through the ship's translation system. "I am Commander Zektar of the Zelthari Empire," the creature said. Its voice was deep and harsh. "You have entered Imperial space without permission. This is forbidden. Identify yourself." Derek took a breath and replied, "I am Captain Derek Morgan of Earth. We come in peace, seeking to explore and make contact with other civilizations. We meant no offense by entering your space." Zektar's yellow eyes narrowed. "Earth, we have no record of this world in our database. You are unknown and unauthorized. Your vessel will be seized and your crew will be taken for questioning." "That's not acceptable," Derek said firmly. "We are a peaceful expedition. We're willing to leave your space immediately and discuss proper diplomatic channels." "You do not understand your position, human," Zektar said. The word human sounded like an insult the way he said it. "The Zelthari Empire has ruled this sector for 3,000 years. All species submit to imperial law. You will comply or you will be destroyed." Derek felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "We're not looking for trouble. Just let us leave peacefully." "Too late for that," Zektar replied. "The Overlord has been informed of your presence. He will decide your fate. Until then, you will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." The communication ended abruptly. Derek looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. "Katie, can we outrun them?" he asked. Katie checked her screens and shook her head. "No, sir. They're faster than us and we're surrounded. What about fighting our way out? Against 5 ships that size? We wouldn't last 5 minutes, Captain." Derek knew she was right. He had to think quickly. "Open a channel to the lead ship." "Channel open, sir," Paul said. "Commander Zektar will agree to meet with your overlord," Derek said. "But we won't power down our weapons. We'll follow your ships to wherever this meeting will take place." There was a long pause before Zektar responded. "Very well. But if you make any hostile move, we will destroy you instantly. Follow us." The alien ships turned and began moving deeper into the system. Derek ordered his crew to follow at a safe distance. He felt uneasy about this whole situation. These Zelthari seemed aggressive and arrogant. They had made no attempt at friendly communication. "Henry, get me everything you can find about these aliens," Derek said. "I want to know who we're dealing with." "Already on it, Captain," Henry replied. "But there's something you should know. I'm detecting human life signs in this system. A colony, I think." Derek spun around. "What, where?" "On the 4th planet. It's Titan's Edge, one of our mining colonies. Population about 15,000. Derek's blood ran cold. Titan's Edge had been established 5 years ago to mine rare minerals. If the Zelthari considered this their space, what would they do to that colony? "Try to contact them," Derek ordered. "Warn them about what's happening." Paul worked at his console, then shook his head. "I can't get through, sir. The Zelthari are jamming all our communications." Derek watched the alien ships ahead of them and felt dread growing in his stomach. Something was very wrong about this situation. These weren't curious aliens interested in meeting a new species. These were conquerors who saw humans as trespassers. As they flew deeper into the system, Derek made a decision. Whatever happened next, he would not let these aliens threaten Earth or its colonies. Humanity had come too far and worked too hard to bow down to bullies, no matter how powerful they were. He just hoped he was making the right choice. The fate of humanity might depend on what happened in the next few hours.